the 21st chapter of the book of Revelation. Oh, I can't go on without saying this. If you didn't get to come out and make a night of our VBS, then you missed it. Because, I mean, it was just wonderful. We had a great group of kids, and in the past it's been better attended by adults. I know that we get really busy, and so without hitting you twice with this, just in the message, I just have a little reminder of some of the things that we should be doing and carrying out, no matter our position. And so all I'm saying, folks, is, some people say, well, I don't have any kids or grandkids here. I'm just telling you, if you had come out, it is just such a wonderful experience to be with the kids and the adults that hang around back here. And it's just cool. I mean, some of the things that we'll be talking about this morning, those are the reminders that the kids got all week, and looking at the source of power, the way that God provides, the strength that He gives, the love that He offers us, and just a great job. I just want to say great job to all those who volunteered and helped. And so if you did, just stand up right now. If you were one of our volunteers or helped out, stand up. We just want to say thank you to all of you. Because we had kids galore, and it was just really fun. All right, we're going to look at the first 3 verses of this text, and then it's going to take us a while to get back to the rest of it, and I hope that you see why. Because we're going to talk about 3 things this morning. Number 1, who you are. Number 2, what you do. And number 3, what are you anticipating? It's a question. What exactly are you anticipating? And so we're coming back to the majority of it. But we're going to look at I lied to you. We're going to look at the first 2 verses. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. Prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. And we're just going to stop there for just a few moments, and we're going to talk about what exactly that means. I hope that you all have been enjoying this series and have been challenged by it. I hear a lot of people say that they've enjoyed the series because it's taken away some of their fears, not only of this book, but also their fears about how things are going to work out in the future. I think sometimes when we sensationalize so many things about the end, and again, I know some people become frustrated because I mentioned Tim LaHaye's series, Left Behind, and so some people have become frustrated about that. And all I'm trying to tell you, folks, is that the whole Left Behind series is a theory. It's a theory. And the problem that we face today is that so many people have bought into it that they think that that's exactly the way it has to go. And please, in hearing this other theory in amillennialism, don't try to think that I'm trying to replace that. I'm just simply saying that when it comes to the things in the end, there's a little bit of room because none of us have ever been there, okay? None of us have gone through it. And so simply put, we're looking at some theories of the end and how it plays out. And so for some people, this has been a really frustrating series. For other people, this has been refreshing. For some people, I've had a couple of people come to me and say, well, I'm even more confused now. Well, I'm sorry, but you have a teacher called the Holy Spirit who should be helping you if you're in tune with Him. And I'm not trying to slam you on that, but I'm not necessarily up here to present every detail for you and spoon feed you, because the Bible teaches that we have a Holy Spirit who is to be our guide and our teacher. And so open it up, read a little bit more, study a little bit more, and hopefully the clarity will be there. God is not a God of confusion. He is a God of clarity and peace. And so I hope that for most of us it's brought a challenge to look at the end a little bit differently and to be reassured of this one fact, that Jesus is coming back and we win. To look at what these guys just sang about, that we are redeemed, we have been bought with a price, and nothing can take us back. A little word of explanation from last week, by the way, because I had this question come up. I talked about Satan being bound, and Satan is bound. And I used the illustration or the analogy that it's like John Gotti being in prison, and yet he still directs his minions to do his work. And so someone came to me and asked me, what about the verse in Peter that says that he's like a roaring lion roaming the earth seeking those whom he can devour? Listen, Satan is not necessarily in prison. He is bound. He is bound in his power, and that means that he can't touch Christians the way that he influences and takes control of the world. That's what it means that he is bound. And the best that he can do, I never really looked at it this way before. The best that he can do is roar. That's the best he can do against us. Unless we give ourselves over to him, and then, believe me, he will devour us. He will destroy us if we give him the power to do so. But we've been redeemed. We've been rescued. We've been set free. And so if that's the case, then doesn't it make sense that we should live as such? I use those first two verses because when New Jerusalem, when the new heaven and the new earth and the new Jerusalem descends, it says that the church, his bride, will be dressed, will be beautifully adorned. And the other night, a group of us went over to hear Matt Maurer in Champaign, free concert with WBGL. And so we went and we sat in a field. And one of the most special moments is when Matt shared with us that sometimes we forget that right now, right here, we are his bride. And if the bride is to be beautifully adorned, then doesn't it make sense that should be a part of what's happening right now? If what we're looking forward to is a kingdom that is everlasting, and a description of what we're going to read in a little bit, then doesn't it make sense that that's what we ought to be ushering in right now? That a part of our job, a part of our purpose, is to usher in God's kingdom. When Jesus returns, the Scripture says that we're going to go out and meet him. We're going to go out and we're going to welcome him. What better welcome than to present ourselves as a people who know who we are, who know and do what we should be doing, and who have anticipated that wedding feast, who have anticipated life forever with him. And so very, very first thing is to cover who we are. Now, right now in this place, we have gathered together a mixture of people. The church, the people who are the church here, are those who have been redeemed, who have been bought, who understand that they are no longer slaves to sin, but they are slaves to Christ. The Apostle Paul said, "I am not my own, for I have been bought with a price." The Apostle Paul also went on to say that he was a slave to Jesus Christ, a bond slave. If you know what a bond slave is, it means that someone who focuses on working for the Lord, for working for whoever their master is. And in this case, what Paul says is, I am a bond slave to Christ. All that I do, all that I am is focused on him. This past week in our VBS, one of the great things was that the kids were learning all about the fact that it is God's strength that gets them through this life. In fact, over the next few months, that's what we're going to be focusing on coming out of this series. We've looked at about, the idea of Jesus coming back for us. And so what we're going to do is, what do we do until then? Well, we live out our mission. That's the next series, living our mission. And then in September, we begin a series about living through the frustrations of this life, living through the obstacles that we face. And so we're going to be looking at getting ready, being prepared, because that's what the whole message of this book. I hope that what you leave with, Brian preaches next week, and then I wrap it up in 2 weeks. And I hope that what you get out of this message is more than just an understanding about the end, but an understanding that what we must do is be prepared, to be ready. People, get ready, because Jesus is coming soon. We'll be going home. That's what this message has been about, to get ready. And so what does that look like? Well, first of all, it has to do with who we are. And in this room, there is the church. The church are the redeemed, those who have given their lives over to Christ. Now, within the church, let me just deal with that for just a little bit. Within the church, there are some mighty confused people. Because there are some people within the church, even though they understand that they are redeemed, and even though they understand that they shouldn't be a slave to sin any longer, that they really still struggle with some sin issues. And so we're not pretending about that. No church is perfect, okay? But if those are habitual things that are a part of your life and God is telling you to let them go, then I'm just simply going to state to you in a more emphatic way that maybe God has been speaking to you, but you need to let them go. You need to let them go, because that is no longer who you are. You have been bought with a price. You are not your own. You belong to God. And so His direction is what counts in your life. And so if you have a habit of lying to people and maybe telling tales, or maybe you're one of those people that is just kind of you exaggerate things or whatever it might be, let it go. If you are a gossip, let it go. I spent a whole long time talking about gossip. I'm not going to do it this morning. If you are a person who suffers from addictions, then let them go, because it's no longer who you are. If you have lived for yourself for so many years, and God is saying to you, you need to focus on other individuals, then let go of that selfishness. If you have been proud and you think that you're better than other people, then let it go, because it's no longer who we are. And when it comes to being the bride of Christ, it's ugly. And Jesus says that we belong to the Father through Him. And so we should look different. It's who you are. I received a very nice note from Tyler Reynolds. We gave him a graduation card. He graduated from, you guys will remember this, the Reynolds Institute of Higher Learning, because Tyler is homeschooled. And I thought that was pretty creative of Brian or whoever made it up. But Tyler sent me a note, and he said, I want to thank you, because I still remember something you said one time, and I've repeated it here lately. He said, I remember something that you said. I want to thank you for reminding me that Jesus is always with me, that I am His. And the statement that I made was this. We used to tell Emily this all the time. You remember to whom you belong. Now here's my fear. So often we forget to whom we belong, don't we? I mean, it's easy in here, when we're in here together, to remember. I won't always say it's easy in here either, because sometimes things may be said to you, or someone may do something to you, And we have to remember that we belong to Jesus. And we have to remember that we're all sinners. And we have to remember that it's His grace that saves us. And so sometimes in here it's the most difficult place to remember whom we belong to or who we belong to. But we especially forget it out there. And that's the part that I really want to focus on this morning. Because if this passage is correct, that we're to be a bride beautifully adorned for her husband, and if Matt Maher's reminder is true, that as his bride, that we need to be, focusing on certain things to usher in the kingdom, to prepare the world for the kingdom, to bring other people into the kingdom, then it's going to matter that you remember who you are when you're out there. Perry Noble once said that he's convinced in the South, the Bible Belt, and we're kind of on the top buckle of the Bible Belt, if you will, here. In the Bible Belt, he's convinced that what people think about the church is that this is who we are. We gather on Sunday morning. We don't sleep in. We don't get up on Sunday morning and wash our cars or mow the lawn or whatever. And this is what we do. This is who we are. And he said, I'm convinced that people in the church sometimes think that their job is just to make an appearance. And I want to take off with that because our job is to make an appearance. You know where? Out there. I mean, it's wonderful for us to gather together. We need this. We need this encouragement. We need this instruction. We need the reminders. We need the power that comes from fellowship with one another and fellowship through the Holy Spirit. But we have to remember that when we leave here, we are His. We belong to Him. We were bought with a price. We are with a Christ too. We are bought with a price, and we are not our own. And so get over the idea of thinking that what you're going to give Him every week is a couple of hours on Sunday. Because if that's what you believe and that's what you're trying to live, then you are not going to enjoy what we have in the future. Now, some people say, well, now you're getting into a works-based theology. No, I'm not. I'm simply saying that if Jesus did what He did for you, and that is that He gave Himself a ransom for you, that He took His innocent life, His perfect life, His God-given abilities and gifts, because He is God in the flesh, and He laid all that aside, and He came and He found you worthy to die for you, then can't you find Him worthy to live for Him? That's what we're talking about this morning. It has nothing to do with your salvation. But if you're not demonstrating that you belong to Him, then you really don't belong to Him. Do you get that? And so it's who you are. And who I am is one who has been crucified with Jesus Christ. And who you are is one who has been crucified with Jesus Christ. And it is no longer we who live, but it is Christ who lives within us. And that leads to the second thing that I want to talk about this morning. And that is, if that's who you are, then it should have an impact on what you do. If that's who you are, then it should have an impact on what you do. Well, that didn't work. If you belong to Jesus and you're a slave to Him, then He should be shining through. You remember this story. One little girl once asked her mother on the way home, "Mom, is it true that Jesus lives in our heart?" "Yes, honey, it is." "Mom, is it true that Jesus is just, he's everywhere and he is He is big in everything that he does. His love, his grace, his mercy. Yes, yes, honey, it is. Well, then, shouldn't he be poking through? And so, folks, if that's who we are, then it should be that he is shining through us. I believe that's what Paul meant when he said, shine like stars. Shine like stars. Live like stars out there. Now, not our stars. Not our stars in Hollywood. Not that kind of thing. Live like stars. It's what Jesus said. Let your light so shine before men that they might see your good works and then glorify the Father who is in heaven. If we're going to usher in his kingdom, then it means that we must pay attention to what we do. So let me come back around. And this one's going to be a tough thing for all of us. Because I really don't want to paint the picture that everything that happens here at the church or that the church does in the community, that each and every individual must be there. I don't want to paint that picture. But I do want to ask you, are the things that happen here in the work at CrossRoads Christian Church, are the things that happen here as important to you as some of the other things that you're involved in your life? Are the things that happen here as important to you as that TV series that you just have to watch every week? Are the things that happen here or in the kingdom itself as important to you as your several vacations every year? Are the things that happen here as important to you as getting your yard cleaned up and having your garden just look so gorgeous? Are the things that the church is to be doing as important to you as trying to get your child a professional baseball scholarship? Because that's what we're talking about. Who we are should be reflected in what we do. And so that means that if you're a new believer and you feel like God is placing on your heart to give up something. Now here's the other. Listen, for those who are saying, well, he's just against you got to work here and you can't work. No. All I'm saying is the mission of the church has got to be priority. See, I know we have school teachers here. And I know that we have people who work in factories here. I know that we have management from different organizations here. I know that we have people in office jobs. Listen, what I'm asking you is the mission of the church that important to you, or is all of that what you're living for? Is that where you're spending the majority of your time? Because the problem is, and we've already established this, the problem is when we go out there, we forget who we are. And the sad part, we need that reminder that we are the church. And so for VBS, these kids are important. And if we want to leave a legacy, then it means that maybe for a while VBS ought to have the priority for people in this church, for leaders in this church. That we give some priority to what we do here, because these are the only things that are going to last. That other stuff, it's going to come, those things that we work so hard for, and I'm not knocking them, it's just that they shouldn't have priority. it's what we do, and we can't help it, and we've got to get to that point. In fact, let me just plug this. We had a couple this past week whose kids came on Sunday night, and it was wonderful to hear from them that when the kids had come, and they weren't really even in, one of them wasn't even of the age to go to VBS, he was helping. And it was cool to hear the kids, or the parents relay to me that the kids came to them and said, Dad, do we have to play in our ball games this week? Because we'd rather be here. And that was just awesome. Now see, right now there's somebody going, well, they made a commitment to the ball team too. Listen, that's not the point. The point is that the world's out there calling for our commitment, and we've got to make a decision. And as a believer, I would hope that sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, I'm saying I would hope that as a believer, sometimes the priority would be to have your child here. Not all the time. Please don't misunderstand that. I'm a sports nut. I love sports, especially football. I think it's God's sport. I do. I wish he'd look down on the Bears a little bit, but and so folks, because it takes an incredible, and I know this, please understand I know this because I lived it for so long. Preaching at a church while working in a job, I did it for years. And I know how tough it is. So please don't hear me as being uncaring about situation or whatever. It's just that we've got to come back around to that it becomes so much a part of our life that people know it and people see it. You know, I'm reminded of the story in the book of Daniel when Darius said, listen, for the next 30 days, no one can pray to anyone else but me. And you know what it says? Daniel went home. It doesn't say that he filed a lawsuit on this, claiming religious harassment. It says that he went home and he did as he always did. He opened the windows towards Jerusalem and he knelt down on his knees and he prayed just like he always did. Folks, that's what we're talking about this morning. Who you are should define what you do. And so if you're a leader in this church, that means that you set and you lead by example. One of my favorite lines in Remember the Titans, you guys remember this? Character reflects leadership. And so if you're a leader in this church, then you lead by example. Who you are determines what you do. If you're a believer in this church, then you lead your family by example. Who you are determines what you do. If we are a people who are supposedly sold out and bought for Christ, bought and sold out to Christ, then it should be seen in the way that we live. And then finally, what exactly are you anticipating? What exactly are you anticipating? And I think this is a key question. Robbie and I spent a lot of time talking about this one. Because when it comes to heaven, what exactly are you anticipating? What are you looking forward to? And you know, the interesting thing is, and Robbie actually is the one that came up with this, he said, when we ask that question, I don't think so many people are going to answer Jesus. In fact, the first thing on people's minds are probably maybe a loved one. I'm looking forward to seeing, my dad or my grandpa, or I'm looking forward to seeing my child. I'm looking forward to meeting Paul. Maybe Paul is kind of your biblical hero. I'm looking forward to seeing the golden streets. Looking forward to to touring the city. I'm looking forward. And I guess when we talked about it, at first it was kind of like, but that just kind of reflects, doesn't that kind of reflect who we are? We kind of get caught in thinking more about ourselves than necessarily about what's been done for us. And here's the good news. I think God's okay with that. I'll illustrate it in this way. Emily, one of her first jobs, first nursing jobs, worked at one of the nursing homes. And if you've ever been in any of the nursing homes, you know that when God bless you, if that's what you do, because our senior adults in this country need good care. They do. But it can also be a very miserable place and depressing place to work, and we know that. And so Emily was just miserable in this job. She was surrounded by people who, that she just didn't get along with, and they didn't care for her. And so we were playing in a ball game. We were at Winter Park. I remember this. And Emily, I saw her coming. The ball game was just over, and Emily was coming up towards the ball game, and she was crying. I mean, every night she'd get off work, and she'd be crying, and she's coming up, and we're walking towards her, and I hold my arms out, and I'm about to hug her, and then Brock cuts in and hugs her. Hey, baby, how are you doing? And I got to tell you, my first instinct was like, boy? And then I thought, my daughter is going to be okay in her life because she has a wonderful husband who cares and who loves her and who is now stepping in to take my role as protector and provider. And I was okay with it. I mean, just like that. It really was just like that. I didn't have to go home and dream about it and think about it. It was like that. And so what I want you to know is when God hears us say, well, I'm looking forward to seeing my father-in-law, Joe, God's okay with that. God put Joe in my life to begin with. He put him there for me to be loved and to be cared for and to be taught. He understands. But listen, folks, at some point we're going to see Jesus. We're going to see Jesus. And then I can't help but think of that old song. I love that song. I bowed on my knees and cried holy. When we see Jesus, we're going to fall to our knees because he's the one who died for us. I told Robbie, I said, I think one of the things that we face, I'm going to wrap up with this, and we're going to read through the text, and then we're going to go into invitation. I think one of the things that I'm more frustrated with in America than anything else is that when it comes to anticipating heaven, there are many, many Americans, and maybe even many, many American Christians, who cannot fathom that heaven is going to be better because they have it so good here. I mean, they have their 3 cars, and they have their boats, and they have their home. Listen, if I'm describing any of you, please don't hear it in that way. I'm talking about an attitude, not people. They have all those things, and to them, heaven can't look that much. It's not much better than that. Can't be. And John gives us just a little picture of why it's so different. And until we convince this nation and this world that heaven indeed will be better than this place, When we do, folks, people will come. When we begin living like we are expecting and we are anticipating and we are longing for heaven, then this world will respond. When we understand who we are, what we should do, and what we're waiting for. Verse 3, and I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, now the dwelling of God is with men, and he will live with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. He who was seated on the throne said, I am making everything new. Then he said, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. He said to me, it is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To him who is thirsty I will give to drink without cost from the spring of water of life. He who overcomes will inherit all this, and I will be his God, and he will be my son. But the cowardly, the unbelieving, the vile, the murderers, the sexually immoral, those who practice magic arts, the idolaters, and all liars, their place will be in the fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is the second death. One of the seven angels who had the seven bowls full of the seven last plagues came and said, come, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb. And he carried me away in the Spirit to a mountain great and high, and showed me the holy city Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. It shone with the glory of God, and its brilliance was like that of a very precious jewel, like a jasper, clear as crystal. It had a great high wall with 12 gates, and with 12 angels at the gates. On the gates were written the names of the 12 tribes of Israel. There were 3 gates on the east, 3 on the north, 3 on the south, and 3 on the west. The wall of the city had 12 foundations, and on them were the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. The angel who talked with me had a measuring rod of gold to measure the city, its gates and walls. The city was laid out like a square, as long as it was wide. He measured the city with the rod and found it to be 12,000 stadia in length, and as wide and high and as it is long. He measured its wall, and it was 144 cubits thick by man's measurement, which the angel was using. What he's describing is a big cube, by the way. Just a big cube, 1,400 feet by 1,400 feet by 1,400 feet. Miles. The wall was made of jasper, and the city of pure gold, as pure as glass. The foundations of the city were decorated with every kind of precious stone. The first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, the third chalcedony, the fourth emerald, the fifth sardonyx, the sixth carnelian, the seventh chrysolite, and the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th chrysoprase, the 11th jacinth. I'd rather read some Old Testament names. And the 12 amethyst. The 12 gates were 12 pearls, each gate made of a single pearl. The great street of the city was of pure gold, like transparent glass. I did not see a temple in the city, because the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. The city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light, and the Lamb is its lamp. The nations will walk by its light, and the kings of the earth will bring their splendor into it. On no day will its gates ever be shut, for there will be no night there. The glory and honor of the nations will be brought into it. Nothing impure will ever enter it, nor will anyone who does what is shameful or deceitful, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. And so what he describes for us is a glorious place, a beautiful place. And I know that might disappoint some people that we didn't go through more of those things and exactly what they represent. But I believe what God is saying is, listen, I'm preparing a place, and it's gorgeous. And it's your home. And the most important aspect is, I am there. Will you be?